Good morning. I'm Eric Blank, and this is our Commissioners' Weekly Meeting for Wednesday, May 21st. Before we jump into it, I just want to briefly talk about Dr. Edie Miller, a former Colorado PUC chair who passed away earlier this month. Appointed by Governor Lamb in 1974, Dr. Miller was both the first woman and the first economist to sit on the Colorado PUC and is still the longest serving commissioner to this day. According to her obituary, Dr. Miller's time on the commission was one of upheaval, including public protests about changes in energy and telecom, all of which she appears to have deftly handled. During her testimony before the Colorado Senate in 1981, when she was unanimously confirmed to a second term, Dr. Miller testified that a PUC commissioner has to walk a tightrope between consumer concerns and business realities. That still resonates with me. From what I've heard, Dr. Miller sounds like an incredible person, and it's an honor to follow in her footsteps. And I'd offer my condolences to her family and friends. With that, Commissioner Gilman, are you any introductory comments? Are you ready to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for that. And I share with you in that recognition and our condolences from all of us here. And I don't have anything additional this morning and would vote to approve the consent agenda.
Commissioner Plant.
Thank you. And yes, I would approve the consent agenda as well.
Thanks. As do I. Dr. Fishaber, Ms. Harper, temporary rules implementing state safety oversight for fixed rail.
Good morning, Commissioners. Pam Fishaber, Deputy Director for Public Safety. With your permission, I would like to discuss items 1 and 2 together.
Yep.
So the purpose of the temporary rules and opening up the permanent rulemaking is to revise the State Safety Oversight Program standard to conform to recently adopted changes at the federal level. This includes the Part 673 rules issued by the Federal Transit Administration on April 11th of 2024, providing information for the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, which became effective May 13th, 2024. The updated Part 674 rules, which deal with the state safety oversight. The Part 672 rules, which deal with training. And then finally, the new rail transit roadway worker protection rules that are part of 49 CFR Part 651, which were issued on October 31st of 2024. The Part 674 rules just became effective on March 20th of 2025. So what started out as a small rulemaking turned into a big one. For this rulemaking, we're proposing, because the term system safety has been removed from the FTA rules, we are proposing to make some changes in the basis, purpose, and statutory authority and the scope of applicability and applications that make those appropriate changes, including the applicability section. In terms of definitions, we have revised several definitions in Rule 7341 and added some additional definitions and removed some definitions that are no longer applicable under the Part 672, 3, and 4 rules. And all the specifics will be outlined in the notice of proposed rulemaking. We have updated the incorporation by reference to include the Part 671 and Part 672 rules. For the State Safety Oversight Program management policies and objectives, we've updated the rules to substitute in the Public Transportation Safety Certification Training Program acronym. For the State Safety Oversight Program standard development, we have throughout the rules replaced commission staff with SSOA staff, which stands for State Safety Oversight Authority. For the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan rules, we've made a number of changes in Rule 7345 to bring our program standard rules in line with the FTA rules. And in terms of submittal and review of the P-test, we've updated those references. We've updated information regarding corrective action plans under Rule 7347. We've updated the safety event notification rules under 7348. We've also made updates to the investigation and reporting procedures for safety events in Rule 7349. For Rule 7350 on investigations and reporting procedures for hazards, we have updated and revised those rules to be in line with the FTA's rules. We've done the same with the safety risk-based inspection program to make some minor changes to those rules. We've included, updated the RTA internal Rail Transit Agency internal safety rules. And then the biggest change is the addition of the Rail Transit Roadway Worker Protection Rules, which are new rules from Rule 7353 through 7359. It includes a separate section on applicability, all of the new definitions for roadway worker protection rules. It provides information on the Roadway Worker Protection Program and Program Manual, what the Rail Transit Agency and transit worker responsibilities are under these new rules, what the Commission and the SAOA staff responsibilities are under this rule, under the new FTA rules. That provides information on the required Roadway Worker Protection Program elements, the record keeping that is required, Commission safety audits, which have to be done on a yearly basis for the Roadway Worker Protection Program. And then we have renumbered some sections based on the insertion of the roadway worker protection rules. So because the new rules are now all in effect as of March 20th, we would like to issue the proposed rules as temporary rules so we can get those in place in time for RTD to be able to provide its new roadway worker protection manual by the end of the year. And then we also propose to start the permanent rulemaking today as well with a notice of proposed rulemaking. So unless you have any questions or discussion.
Commissioner Gilman.
No, nothing. Thanks, Dr. Fisher.
Would you vote to approve the recommendation?
Oh yeah, sorry. Just thought you were asking for comments. Yeah, I would give a recommendation. Thank you.
Commissioner Plant.
I would approve the recommendation as well.
As would I, and Dr. Fishaber, that can be an ABC decision, opening a proceeding, adopting temporary rules, issuing a NOPR, and I think we're going to refer this to an ALJ.
Correct. I apologize for overseeing that. Yes, referring to an ALJ.
All right. I think you're good. Thanks.
Thank you, commissioners.
Proceeding number 23M-0236T, Mr. Branson, Ms. McLaughlin.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. On March 31st, 2025, Quest Corporation, doing business as CenturyLink QC, filed its report under Rule 2134E, which requires all certified basic emergency service providers, or BESPs, to provide information related to its continued operation in the state as a basic emergency service provider. However, the filing is missing several items required by Rule 2134E. Specifically, CenturyLink failed to provide the following required information. 1, a description of the company's affiliation with other companies and the associated addresses for those companies. 2, the business addresses for all officers, directors, partners, agents, and managers responsible for providing basic emergency service or 911 call delivery to public safety answering points in Colorado. 3, copies of any management contracts, service agreements, marketing agreements, or any other agreements between the company and any other entity, including affiliates of the company that relate to the provision of basic emergency service in Colorado. 4, identification of any actions by any court, regulatory body, agency, or official within the last 5 years regarding the provision of regulated communications services by the company, its agents, or affiliates. 5, a list of all interconnection agreements between the BESP and basic local exchange carriers, wireless carriers, and other telecommunications providers. And finally, 6, an attestation that all of the information provided is true, accurate, and correct, and that the BESP remains financially and administratively sound and capable of providing the basic emergency service offered in its current tariff. The purpose of these requirements under this rule are to allow the Commission and local 911 stakeholders to understand how the 911 network in Colorado is provisioned and what the relationships are between CenturyLink as the Commission certified basic emergency service provider and all of the affiliates, partners, and subcontractors that are engaged by the company to provide this critical service of 911 call delivery in the state. To address this before you today is a draft decision directing CenturyLink to file a supplement to its report by June 20th of 2025 to correct the omissions in its original filing. With that, I think the recommendation is clear, so I will just pause to see if you have any questions and for your vote.
Commissioner Goodman,
Thanks, Mr. Branson. I agree with your recommendation.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree as well.
as do I, and that can be an ABC decision asking CenturyLink to make the additional filings. So thank you, Mr. Branson.
Thank you.
Mr. Green, we're proceeding number 21A-0096E, Colorado's Power Pathway.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Dan Greenberg with your advisory staff. On April 21st, Public Service submitted its most recent semi-annual progress report on the Colorado Power Pathway, which I'll refer to as the CPP. The independent engineer submitted its quarterly report shortly thereafter. These reports present a largely good news story. CPP segments 2 and 3, which run from the Pawnee Power Plant to the Goose Creek substation near Burlington and continue south to the May Valley substation near Lamar, Colorado, are nearing completion, and the company reports that they'll be placed into service later this month, about 3 months ahead of schedule. The most recent estimated cost to complete these segments is coming in at about $90 million below the approved budget. Segment 1 of the CPP, running from St. Vrain to Fort St. Vrain to Pawnee, is the next segment scheduled for completion in about a year. In the progress report, the company indicates that it has completed all land and right-of-way acquisition, permitting, and engineering, and most materials have arrived on site. The company's current cost estimate for segment 1 is to come in at $16 million over the approved budget, a variance of 6.4%. Overall, the company is currently estimating that it will complete the entire CPP at a cost of $1.664 billion, which would be a savings of about $31 million or about 2% of the approved budget. CPP Segment 4 connects the May Valley, Sandstone, and Tundra substations, and Segment 5 connects the Sandstone substation to the Harvest Mile substation southeast of Denver. These segments are slated for completion about 2 years from now. Public Service reports that it has secured all of the permanent easements it needs for Segment 4, and about 2/3 of those needed for Segment 5. As you might expect in a more densely populated area, the company is facing more opposition in its attempt to finalize the route for Segment 5. It notes that it has started, quote, the statutory acquisition process, end quote, with a higher percentage of landowners than has been required for the other segments. The company also reports that significant local opposition has resulted in delays in obtaining the necessary permits in Elbert and El Paso counties, noting that if the land use permit applications were to be denied, the cost and schedule impacts could be significant. While the company has already received the vast majority of materials needed for the construction of Segment 1, most components for Segments 4 and 5 are yet to be delivered, which leaves room for considerable uncertainty. The company reports that in the last 6 months, there's been a significant increase in the risk and uncertainty associated with trade policy and the imposition of tariffs on imports to the United States. Some materials are being acquired from foreign suppliers, such as steel structures from Mexico and conductor from India. While the company has entered into fixed price contracts for these materials, current and potential future tariff policies adopted by the United States may disrupt the pathway project and raise the cost of these materials. The company notes that volatility and uncertainty in tariff policy is making it difficult at this time to effectively anticipate or plan for all future tariff impacts that may affect the remaining material procurement and delivery for the pathway project. As of mid-April, when the company filed its status update, it was estimating tariff costs at about $28 million. The company states that it is closely monitoring trade policies and working with existing suppliers to manage cost increases due to tariffs where possible. It notes that it has structured contracts to account for tariff fluctuations to the extent possible, helping to mitigate unexpected financial impacts. So overall, the latest reports on the CPP paint a positive picture, but note that there may be some storm clouds on the horizon in the form of permitting and tariff-related cost increases. I'll turn it over to you for your discussion now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Appreciate the update, and sounds like mostly good news with some risk on the horizon. I'd just say I heard from colleagues in Nevada that a similar line, $2 billion line they had was way over budget, $500 million or $1 billion on a $2 billion line. So I don't know. Pleased to see the results of aligning incentives and the progress here. So I don't know, Commissioner Gilman, thoughts, comments?
Yeah, similar. Well, thanks for the update, Mr. Greenberg. And yeah, I think on balance at this point, it sounds like projects being pretty effectively managed, and that's a good thing for the company and for Colorado ratepayers. And it sounds like they're trying hard to find cost savings where they can to offset some of the uncertainty and increases they've seen. So really appreciate the update, and hopeful that we have the mechanisms in place and the reporting to continue to track the success here and see this project delivered at a reasonable cost. So appreciate it.
Commissioner Plant.
Yeah, thanks. Sounds like generally pretty good news. I think, yeah, the uncertainty is sort of our new normal, but thank you, Mr. Chairman, for making us all worried again. But it seems like it's going pretty well.
It's our job, isn't it? Thanks, Mr. Greenberg. I don't think there's any action. I appreciate you bringing this forward. Proceeding number 24AL-0049G, Public Service Company gas rate case, motion for partial variance. Mr. Davis.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ron Davis of the Commission's advisory staff. Yesterday, Public Service Company of Colorado filed an unopposed motion in its recently concluded gas rate case. The company asked the Commission to extend from June 1st to October 1st, 2025, the deadline to file its next gas quality of service plan. Public Service explains that the extra time will allow the company to work with the Commission staff and other stakeholders on a reformulated QSP in advance of the expiration of its current QSP at the end of next year. Public Service further explains that its gas personnel have been focused on preparing the company's gas infrastructure plan filing that's due this Friday and on litigating the ongoing Mountain Energy project. The same personnel have also been involved in the gas depreciation study filing that's also on today's meeting agenda. The June 1st filing deadline was established by decision C-2550 issued in January. However, the deadline for any final round of RRR in this rate case just concluded last week. So the decision for you is whether to grant the requested extension.
Makes sense to me. Commissioner Goman.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Thanks, Mr. Davis.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
And that can be an ABC decision granting the motion and waiving response time. So thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Proceeding 25AL-0140E, Ms. Marcella, Black Hills, Colorado, TEP.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kayla Marcella, and I'm with your trial staff. And I'm here this morning to present 25AL-0140E, Black Hills to EPR. This morning I am presenting on advice letter number 886, which is Black Hills, Colorado Electric's filing to adjust its Transportation Electric Program Rider, or TEPR, effective June 1st, 2025. The Commission approved the TEPR in Black Hills' initial TEP and its continuation in the second TEP. every year, the company makes an April filing to set TPER rates beginning on June 1st. These rates are set to recover the revenue requirement associated with actual expenses from the previous calendar year. In the advice letter before you today, Black Hills is requesting to adjust their TEP revenue requirement in accordance with the actual expenditures incurred pursuant to the company's commission-approved TEPs. This proposal reflects an increase in annualized revenues by $162,601, an increase in collection of revenues from $275,776 to $438,377. This is an increase of 59% compared to current annualized revenue requirement. The TEPR increase in rates for 2024 actual expenses reflect continued TEP spending approved by the Commission on top of amortized costs from previous TEP years. The main categories of TEP spending in 2024 were outreach and communication, program administration, and rebates. According to the advice letter filed by Black Hills, the proposed tariff revisions will result in no change for residential ratepayers, as the proposed residential TEPR rate will remain at its current rate of 0.00020 kilowatt per kilowatt hour. Small commercial monthly bills will increase by $3.16 or 0.87%. The new TEPR rates also reflect a new approach to class cost allocation approved in the most recent TEP. I'll conclude today by noting that revenues collected via the TEPR are subject to a true-up provision. If the TEPR over-recovers from ratepayers, the company must refund any excess revenues to ratepayers with a return at Black Hills' actual weighted average cost of debt. If the TEPR under-recovers from ratepayers, the company may collect revenue shortfalls from ratepayers, but it does not earn any return on those amounts. I'll pause here for any questions, or I can proceed to a recommendation.
Yeah, if you can give us your recommendation, that'd be great.
Sure. Staff recommends that the Commission allow Black Hills' advice letter to take effect by operation of law.
Commissioner Goman. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Thanks, Ms. Marcel. I appreciate it. And I agree with your recommendation.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree as well.
As do I, and that can be NABC. Oh no, we're going to let that one go by operation of law. Thanks, Ms. Marcella.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Proceeding number 25AL-0185E, Mr. Hagland, Public Service Company Revenue Decoupling Adjustment Clause.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Eric Hagland from your economics staff. This morning, I'm presenting advice letter number 1982 Electric, which is Public Services filing to update the rates for its Revenue Decoupling Adjustment Pilot Tariff, or the RDA pilot, effective June 1st. The RDA pilot mechanism, when it was in effect, compared and resolved differences between a baseline of fixed cost recovery authorized by the Commission and the actual fixed costs recovered in base rates from residential and small commercial ratepayers. Recovery of excess or insufficient revenues were reconciled with the baseline through a refund or a surcharge on customers' bills. The RDA pilot ended in August of 2023, so the mechanism is no longer in effect. However, this filing is necessary to address unrefunded balances to ratepayers that accumulated under the RDA in previous years. Specifically, this filing effectuates a refund of $5.2 million to residential ratepayers and $1.6 million to small commercial ratepayers during the 2025 recovery period. For residential, this $5.2 million results from over-recovery in 2022, which was not returned to ratepayers in 2023 or 2024 because of a settlement agreement related to costs incurred during Winter Storm Uri. For small commercial, the $1.6 million resulted from over-recovery of $1.8 million in 2023, minus a $178,000 true-up from under-recovery in 2023 and 2024. The refund amounts approved for recovery during the 2024 recovery period were larger than the refund excuse me, let me start that again. The refund amounts approved for recovery during 2024 recovery period were larger than the refund amounts proposed in this advice letter filing for both residential and small commercial. Therefore, this filing will have the effect of raising the RDA rates compared to their current levels, even though the rates will remain negative. Compared to current RDA rates, the average residential ratepayer will pay 14 cents more per month, and an average small commercial ratepayer will pay $1.19 more per month. This filing has the effect of increasing the company's revenues by about $3.8 million compared to the RDA rates currently in effect. I can pause here for any questions or proceed to a recommendation.
If you can give us a recommendation, that'd be great.
Sure. This filing correctly implements the RDA pilot mechanism, accounting for commission decisions across several recent proceedings. Therefore, staff recommends that the commission allow public services advice letter to take effect by operation of law.
Commissioner Gilman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I also agree.
as do I. Thank you, Mr. Haglund.
Thank you.
Proceeding number 25A dash 0075E, two parts, Ms. Rosati and then Mr. Davis. Oh, Mr. Davis, maybe you're going. Nope, Ms. Rosati.
Good morning, Commissioners. Wendy Rosati of your Commission Council. On May 16th, 2025, Advanced Energy United and the Colorado Energy Office filed cross-answer testimony in this proceeding. On May 19th, 2025, Public Service Company of Colorado filed a motion to strike the cross-answer testimony of these two parties. Public Service argues the purpose of cross-answer testimony is for interveners who disagree with one another's positions to have an opportunity to respond with written testimony. The company argues that this purpose was set forth in a procedural order in this proceeding, which states that the commission typically allows for cross-answer testimony, and which indicates this type of testimony is, quote, by interveners responding only to other interveners' answer testimony. Public Service states that the cross-answer testimony filed by Advanced Energy United and CEO only agrees with and supports the answer testimonies filed by other interveners, and in Advanced Energy United's case, also bolsters its own answer testimony. Public Service claims it is prejudiced by having to address the cross-answer testimony and by the reduction in the already short time frame the company has to prepare for hearing. Given that the evidentiary hearing in this proceeding will begin on May 27th, Public Service asks that response time to its motion be limited to 2 business days. Late yesterday, Advanced Energy United filed a response to the motion to strike, stating that Public Service mischaracterizes its testimony, that it disagrees with Public Service's interpretation of the procedural order in this proceeding, that Public Service's motion is otherwise unsupported by legal authority, and that cross-answer testimonies responding favorably to other parties' positions can support efficient resolution of a proceeding. And with that, I will pause here for your questions or your discussion.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. I mean, for me, I'm sensitive to the fact that there may be some boundary pushing here, and in the extreme, we don't want to see answer testimony filed at the cross-answer testimony deadline. At the same time, however, I believe this testimony is relevant and helpful in building the record. I'd also point out that the PUC has flexibility in running its own proceedings, and that the commission can consider the company's claim of prejudice when weighing the testimony. Given all that, I think that striking this testimony would go too far and would vote to deny the motion to strike. But curious to hear what you think, Commissioner Gilman.
Thanks. I agree with your concept there of denying this motion and leaving the testimony intact.
Commissioner Plant?
I agree as well.
Mr. Rosati, does that give you what you need?
Yes, and I think that can be done by a short ABC order, if that's all right with you.
Yep. And I think, Mr. Davis, you may need an ABC order too, but
well, I don't think we'll need an order for my part. What I'm going to be doing, though, instead, is just publicly clarify that although the commission approved the majority of the consensus procedural schedule, that was filed by the parties on March 28th. The Commission did not schedule a public comment hearing tomorrow, Thursday, May 22nd, as proposed in that consensus schedule. The decision establishing the procedural schedule indeed states that the consensus schedule is approved, but the order goes on to schedule only an evidentiary hearing that begins next Tuesday. The evidentiary hearing replaces the public comment hearing contemplated in the Commission's rules governing regional market participation, and that hearing follows rounds of filings of written testimony in lieu of comments. The source of the confusion, however, was the inclusion of that public comment hearing in the presentation of the consensus schedule in the decision. No written decision, again, is necessary. I only wanted to clarify this morning for the parties and the public that we won't be showing up tomorrow to talk about this case. However, members of the public who are interested in sharing their thoughts on whether public services application related to the SPP Markets Plus market are very welcome. Written comments can be filed into the proceeding, and instructions to do that are available on the Commission's website.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for the clarification and explanation. And Ms. Rosati, we can do an ABC decision denying the motion to strike and shortening response time. With that, proceeding number 25A-0165G, Mr. Fetters, Ms. Dundas.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ian Fetters with y'all's advisory staff, also joined by Lindsay Dundas of your Commission Council, and we are here to talk about depreciation. On April 11th, 2025, Public Service Company of Colorado, or PSCO, filed its application to revise depreciation rates for gas utility assets. This proceeding is, in some ways, the culmination of discussions on depreciation expense in several previous cases. It was originally ordered in proceeding number 22AL0046G, PSCO's combined Phase 1 and 2 gas case in 2022, to be filed 6 months after the conclusion of PSCO's first clean heat plan proceeding. That clean heat plan concluded in mid-2024 in the middle of 24AL0049G, PSCO's 2024 Phase 1 gas case. In 24AL0049G, the Commission reiterated its expectation for the filing of a new depreciation study and also ordered the company to create a trust to the tune of $15 million per year for cost removal. In its RRR in that case, PSCO requested to instead create a regulatory liability to maintain the amounts that would ultimately end up in the trust, positing that the creation of a trust would be very complex and require several decisions to be made, and to move the creation of a trust into the then upcoming depreciation proceeding. In decision number C250050, the Commission granted these requests as well as an extension of the filing deadline for the depreciation proceeding. And finally, in decision number C250235, the Commission granted another brief extension in the filing deadline to April 11, 2025. PSCO made the filing on April 11th, and so here we are. In this proceeding, PSCO asked the Commission for approval of 3 items: its proposed revised depreciation rates for gas utility plant, its proposed treatment of decommissioning costs associated with accelerated depreciation amounts, and deferral of regulatory expenses associated with this proceeding. I will provide some background on each of those 3 items. Regarding the depreciation rates, the company's proposed depreciation rates use the straight line method and equal life group procedure based on actual plant and reserve balances as of December 31st, 2023. I will also refer to this as the baseline depreciation study. The baseline study is essentially a traditional depreciation study consistent with what was ultimately approved in the company's 2022 rate case 22AL0046G. Under this baseline study, annual depreciation expense would increase by $11.4 million, or 6.1%, compared to PSCO's existing depreciation rates. PSCO indicates that this change is mostly due to decreasing net salvage value, or higher decommissioning costs. It indicates that among all the functional groups, there are 13 accounts with decreasing net salvage, or higher decommissioning costs, 23 accounts with unchanged net salvage, and only 1 account with increasing net salvage or lower decommissioning costs. Another component of this baseline study is asset lives, which are generally increasing. PSCO represents that among the functional groups, there are 12 accounts with increasing lives, 4 accounts with decreasing lives, and 21 accounts with unchanged lives. Some examples given by PSCO of accounts with significantly increased service lives include transmission mains, which would increase from 72 years to 80 years under the study, and metallic distribution services, which would increase from 60 years to 67 years. In previous cases leading up to this filing, the Commission, as well as parties, have had discussions about the impacts of the evolving energy landscape on the long-term trajectory of the gas sector. That is, the impacts of state emission reduction goals, beneficial electrification, etc. In recognition of this, the company also filed 2 alternative depreciation studies using the units of production, or UOP method, based on throughput as well as customer count, with 3 sensitivities each reflecting base, low, and high growth projections. These UOP studies assume that all depreciation expense is collected by the end of 2050 for existing plant as well as new gas capital investment, though the company stresses that the date was chosen as a modeling convention and not an actual assumption that the gas system would be retired by 2050. The company ultimately does not recommend the UOP methodology due to a sharp impact on depreciation and customer rates, as well as uncertainties in throughput and customer count forecasts at this time. The company also provided a 25-year depreciation rate model reflecting both the baseline methodology as well as the UOP methodology, projecting annual decommissioning costs, retirement depreciation expense accrued, cost of removal reserve, debt and equity levels, credit metrics, and rate impacts through 2050. Regarding the treatment of decommissioning funds, the company provides more information on assumptions that would go into the establishment of a depreciation trust. The company ultimately requests that the Commission maintain a regulatory liability rather than creating a separate trust, arguing that it is the least cost option for customers under present conditions. However, if the Commission does determine that a trust should be created, the company affirms that it would establish one within approximately 12 months following this proceeding and would file annual reports beginning in the first calendar year after the trust is created. If the Commission goes with a trust, the company also seeks confirmation that a grantor trust is an acceptable form of trust. The trust will have a long-term time horizon. All taxes, fees, and expenses associated with the trust would be paid by the trust, and an acknowledgement that a trust is not guaranteed to earn a return at the company's weighted average cost of capital. Finally, regarding the regulatory expense deferral, the company estimates total expenses associated with this proceeding of $450,000 between legal counsel and consulting. The Colorado Office of the Utility Consumer Advocate, or UCA, filed an intervention of right in this case and requested a hearing. UCA plans to investigate whether approval of the requested relief is in the public interest, as well as the reasonableness of the depreciation study, the reasonableness of the proposed depreciation rates, the level of PSCO's depreciation expense request, the reasonableness of PSCO's proposed regulatory expenses and deferral request, evaluation of PSCO's proposed gas asset decommissioning trusts, alternatives to the decommissioning trust, and the 25-year depreciation model. Western Resource Advocates and Sierra Club, collectively WRA-SC, filed a motion for permissive intervention in this case as well. WRA-SC planned to examine the proposed depreciation rates for gas utility plant, the compatibility of PSCO's proposed depreciation rates with the state's emission reduction targets and climate goals, the net salvage analysis and values presented in the depreciation study, the design and assumptions included in the company's 25-year depreciation rate models, and the company's proposed regulatory liability for future asset retirement obligations. WRA-SC also encouraged the Commission to consider consolidating this proceeding with PSCO's upcoming gas infrastructure plan. They indicate that the 2 proceedings will likely present interrelated issues, including the question of net salvage. Trial staff has not yet intervened in this case. However, they have until the end of today to do so, and it is anticipated that they will. So there are a handful of questions. The first is whether to set this proceeding for hearing and who should hear the case, and I can pause for discussion or provide a recommendation.
No, I think we'd welcome a recommendation, Mr. Fetters.
Sure. I recommend that the commission deem the application complete and set it for hearing before the commission en banc. This proceeding could have long-term policy implications and is also a direct continuation of discussions regarding depreciation and its relation to the future of the gas system had between the commissioners, PSCO, and the parties in previous cases.
Commissioner Gilman.
Thanks, Mr. Fetters. I agree.
Commissioner Plant,
I also agree.
as do I.
Thank you, commissioners. I will now pass it to Ms. Dundas, who will talk about interventions, and then we can talk about supplemental direct as well as procedural schedule.
Ms. Dundas.
Thanks, Mr. Fetters. You did most of the work for me here since you described the interventions, but council recommends acknowledging UCA's notice of intervention of right and granting Sierra Club and WRA's joint intervention as they have made a showing consistent with Rule 1401C. If you accept this recommendation, the parties to the proceeding would currently be the company, UCA, WR, and Sierra Club. However, I know staff has until the end of the day to file a notice of intervention of right.
Commissioner Gilman.
I agree with your recommendation.
Commissioner Plant,
I also agree.
as do I. That was very efficient, Ms. Dundas. Thank you. Mr. Fetters.
Thank you, Ms. Dundas. Now regarding supplemental direct, in order to provide a better understanding of the baseline depreciation study and its long-term ramifications, advisors have prepared a short list of supplemental direct questions, and if it works, I can present those and then turn it over to y'all for any additional questions.
That'd be great.
All right. First, in the baseline depreciation study, depreciation expense increases by 11.4 million. Of that increase, please quantify how much of the change is related to changes in net salvage and how much is related to changes in useful lives. Next, on page 14 of the direct testimony of Dane Watson, it indicates the projected service life for FERC account 376.1 steel has increased from 77 to 80 years. However, table DAWD1 in the testimony shows an approved rate of 72 years and a proposed rate of 77 years for this account. Please confirm which service life is correct for this account. Next, please provide versions of Appendix A and Appendix B to the depreciation study, that is attachment DAW1, pages 83 and 85 in executable format. Next, under both present and proposed depreciation rates, what is the weighted average remaining useful life of all gas assets included in the depreciation study, both at a functional level as well as a grand total? And finally, under both present and proposed depreciation rates, what is the weighted average useful life of forecasted future gas plant investments? Please calculate based on each of the low, base, and high scenarios shown in the 25-year depreciation model.
Commissioner Gilman, do you support those supplemental direct requests?
Yes, I have no issue with those supplemental direct questions, and I think they'll help us. I did have one addition that I just wanted to run by you all as well.
Let's take a vote on Mr. Fetters, then we'll jump to yours, and I have one too. Commissioner Plant, you okay with Mr. Fetters?
Yes, I
am. Commissioner Gilman, why don't you discuss yours, and then I'll jump to mine.
Okay, thanks. In response to our previous interesting questions, Mr. Mueller addresses a question in his direct testimony about the impact that changes in asset life would or could have on the net salvage values, which the company proposes significantly increasing again in this proceeding. I've been trying to reconcile Mr. Mueller's response, which is on page 15 of his direct testimony, saying directly that the asset life has no impact on the net salvage value or the amount of money collected by ratepayers through depreciation of the asset for its eventual decommissioning costs. And what I've found as concurrent or prior statements by the company. So in this same proceeding, in Mr. Watson's Hearing Exhibit 102, attachment DAW1 on page 64, he states some plant assets can experience significant negative removal cost percentages due to the timing of the addition versus the retirement, as well as inflation from the time of installation of the asset until the time of its removal must be taken into account in the calculation of the removal cost percentage, because the depreciation rate, which includes the removal cost percentage, will be applied to the original cost of assets. Then I also found the same exact quote in the 22 and 24 gas rate cases, which was from the company's own testimony. Inflation from the time of installation of the asset until the time of its removal must be considered in the calculation of the removal cost percentage, because the depreciation rate, which includes the removal cost percentage, will be applied to the original cost of the assets. As well as in the 24 gas rate case, an additional quote, however, from the perspective of considering future retirement costs, far and away, the biggest component of the future removal cost is the time value of money. So I think I'm fairly clear from their testimony how they are calculating this currently using a 20-year history of these costs compared to their original asset lives. However, I didn't find Mr. Muller's direct testimony to actually answer the question on how that would be impacted, how the decommissioning costs or their estimation would or could be impacted by a change in asset life. Presumably, these calculations that have been happening over the past 20 years that they're using as the history had a certain asset life that was used to calculate those. And if that were to change in the future, it stands to reason there may be a difference here. So I'd like them to address to essentially reconcile his response in direct testimony on page 15 with these quotes that make it fairly clear that the time that the asset is in service and the time value of money are major factors that do influence the cost of removal and the net salvage value.
I certainly support requesting that clarification, Commissioner Plant.
I support that as well.
Anything else, or is that, nope, that's it,
Okay.
Commissioner? I had a couple. My requests are in regard to hearing Exhibit 103, Table DAW-D1-1. More specifically, I'd like to have the calculations redone, assuming that the depreciable lives were decreased by 5 years for each account. And I'd like to know what impact that would have on annual depreciation expense relative to the rates proposed in this proceeding. And then I'd also like the company to assume that the proposed depreciable lives were decreased by 10 years for each account. And again, I just ask, what impact would this have on annual depreciation expense relative to the rates, again, proposed in this proceeding? So instead of trying to assume everything retires by 2050, I'd just like to see what happens if we start incrementally shortening depreciation life by 5 years and then 10 years. And I'd just say, for me, given potentially declining natural gas sales and growing environmental limitations over time, I'd like to continue to explore ways to incrementally manage down capital spending and to accelerate depreciation, both with the goal of limiting long-term right impacts and financial sustainability risk. So this supplemental direct seeks to develop for discussion a more incremental approach for accelerating depreciation, in addition to the options the company has given us. So Commissioner Goman, would you be all right with that supplemental direct request?
Yes.
Commissioner Plant?
Yes.
And Commissioner Gilman, if you have a script or anything that would help Mr. Fetters and Ms. Dundas write the order, if you haven't sent it to them already, could you?
Yeah, they have my citation.
Oh, good. Mr. Fetters, anything else for this?
Just one last item to talk about procedural schedule, and I have a recommendation on that.
Please.
We recommend the Commission direct PSCO to confer with the parties on a proposed procedural schedule and to file that schedule, including provisions for discovery, as well as dates for supplemental direct, no later than May 30th, 2025. The filing should also include comments regarding WRA-SC's proposal to incorporate this case into the upcoming gas infrastructure plan.
I support that. And Commissioner Goman, do you support that? And are you okay with an ABC order?
Yes, I agree.
Commissioner Plant?
Yes.
Does that give you what you need? I think it's an ABC order certifying the application as complete, setting it for hearing en banc, and making several supplemental direct requests. Does that give you what you need, Mr. Fetters?
Yes, I believe it does. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Dr. Dalkey, welcome back. Great to see you. I've seen you in the halls, but great to see you live. Agenda item opening up repository proceeding.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. The appreciation is mutual. This actually is my first CWM ever, so I'm happy to be here.
Oh.
For what I think will be a brief discussion item for you all regarding whether the Commission should open a repository proceeding to receive annual reports regarding participation in regional electricity markets. So some background here. Commission's Electricity Rule 723-3-3757 subpart A specifies that beginning on June 1st, 2025, each jurisdictional electric utility in Colorado that owns and operates transmission facilities is required to file an annual report with the Commission regarding the current status of the utility's activities related to participating in a regional market. This reporting is to continue annually through June 1st, 2029, unless the Commission has rendered a decision finding that the transmission utility has joined a statutory organized wholesale market in accordance with Commission Rule 3754, or if the Commission has granted the utility a waiver pursuant to Rule 3756. The rules require that each annual report at a minimum include an identification of any regional market in which the utility is currently a member and the date on which that membership began, as well as a description of the utility's efforts to join a statutory organized wholesale market or other regional market by the January 1st, 2030 deadline, including a series of pieces of information addressing each of the topics listed in Commission Rules paragraphs 3755 subparts A through K. And these reports going forward should provide updates to activities discussed in prior reports if applicable. So I can pause there for any questions or discussion, and I can also proceed to a recommendation.
Yeah, if you can give us a recommendation, that'd be great.
Sounds good. We recommend the Commission administratively open a repository proceeding to receive the June 1st, 2025 reports. No written decision would be required to do this.
Commissioner Goman.
Thanks, Dr. Dalkey, and welcome to your first CWM. And I agree with your recommendation.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree as well.
As do I. Thank you, Dr. Dalkey.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Goman. Final thoughts before we adjourn?
No, nothing additional. Thanks.
Commissioner Plant.
Yep, nothing additional. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thanks, you guys. With that, we're adjourned. See everyone next time.